At 3 a.m., while a World Cup player is asleep, their brain does something they have no idea is happening. It physically washes itself. Tiny channels open up between the cells and flush out the chemical garbage left over from the match. If this didn't happen, they couldn't play again in 3 days, and almost no fan has ever heard of it. This is what's actually going on inside a footballer's body in the 24 hours after the final whistle. I'm going to walk you through the whole day, final whistle to next morning. 5 stages: the crash, the window, the night, the brainwash, and the morning, where you find out which parts of the body actually recovered. By the end, you'll know where the real recovery happens. It's not in the ice bath. It's not in the protein shake. Let's start with the moment the whistle blows. Final whistle. The player has just spent 90 minutes at 180 beats per minute. The instant they stop moving, the body has a problem. Blood pressure starts to drop. Heart rate doesn't drop fast enough. For a few minutes, the player is in something cardiovascular physiologists call orthostatic stress. This is why you see players sitting down or going hands on knees right after the whistle. They're not just tired, their cardiovascular system is briefly out of balance. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is significantly elevated, higher than it was before the match. Adrenaline is still flooding through. The player feels fine. They will not feel fine in 20 minutes. Inside the muscles, something else is starting. Microscopic tears, thousands of them in every working muscle fiber. This is normal. This is also what's going to make them sore for the next 2 days. The damaged fibers are starting to leak a protein called creatine kinase into the bloodstream. The leak builds slowly. By tomorrow morning, levels in the blood will be 2 to 3 times what they were yesterday, and that number is the closest thing sports scientists have to a direct measurement of how torn up the player is. So at the final whistle, the player is wired, leaking enzymes, and microscopically torn up. The recovery clock has started. The first 2 hours after the match are the most important. There's a window where the body is primed to absorb fuel faster than at any other time in the day. Within 30 minutes, the player needs roughly a gram of carbs per kilogram of body weight. For an average footballer, that's about 80 grams. Plus 20 to 40 grams of protein. The carbs go straight into rebuilding muscle glycogen, the stuff that got burned through in the match. The protein starts the repair process on the muscle fibers. This is why you see players eating before they even shower. The window is real. While they're refueling, the inflammation is starting in earnest. White blood cells flood into the damaged muscle tissue. They are not there to heal it. Not yet. They're there to break down the damaged cells so new ones can be built in their place. This is the source of the soreness that will peak in about 36 hours. Then comes the ice bath, or the contrast bath, alternating hot and cold. The cold causes blood vessels to constrict. The heat causes them to dilate. The effect is a sort of mechanical flush, blood pushed in and out of the muscles, helping clear metabolic waste. The science on whether ice baths actually speed recovery is mixed. They reduce perceived soreness. They probably help short-term performance, but they may also blunt some of the muscle adaptation. Top teams use them carefully, not religiously. By the end of the second hour, the player has refueled, been treated, given a press interview, and is on the bus. Cortisol is still elevated. Heart rate variability, a measure of how recovered the nervous system is at its lowest point of the day. 3 to 6 hours after the match, the player is back at the hotel, and here's the strange part. They probably can't sleep. After a night match, footballers report some of the worst sleep of their careers. Cortisol is still high. Adrenaline is still washing out. Core temperature is elevated. The body is in a state called sympathetic dominance. The fight-or-flight nervous system is still running the show. Studies on professional players have shown that average sleep duration after a night match drops by about an hour, sometimes more. Sleep efficiency, the percentage of time in bed actually asleep, drops into the low 80s on match nights. For comparison, the target for elite athletes is above 90. Caffeine, taken pre-match as a gum or a gel, has a half-life of around 5 hours, so a dose at 7:30 p.m. is still meaningfully active at 2:30 in the morning. This is a problem, because the actual recovery, the part that decides whether the player is ready to train in 2 days, happens in sleep, and specifically in one stage of it. When the player finally drifts off, the body cycles through stages: light sleep, then deeper sleep, then REM, then back around, every 90 minutes or so. The stage that matters is called slow-wave sleep. Deep, dreamless, the brain electrically slow and synchronized. The first slow-wave cycle of the night is the deepest, and that first cycle is where the body does most of its heavy repair. Here's the part I promised you. Around 3 a.m., the player is deep into slow-wave sleep. Inside the brain, something opens up. The brain doesn't have a lymphatic system the way the rest of the body does. For a long time, nobody knew how the brain got rid of its waste, until about a decade ago, when researchers found it. It's called the glymphatic system. During slow-wave sleep, the spaces between brain cells expand by about 60%. Cerebrospinal fluid, the clear liquid the brain floats in, pumps through these expanded channels. It washes out the metabolic byproducts that built up during the day, including a protein called beta amyloid, the one associated with Alzheimer's disease. For a footballer, this matters more than for most people. 90 minutes of high-intensity exercise produces a flood of waste products in the brain. Inflammatory markers peak in the 12 to 24-hour window after the match. If the glymphatic system doesn't clear them, the player wakes up with what they describe as a foggy head, slow reactions, bad mood, trouble concentrating. This is also where the link to heading the ball is starting to come into focus. Recent imaging studies on contact sport athletes, including football and soccer players, have found measurable reductions in glymphatic clearance after a season of repeated head impacts. The research is still early, but the direction is clear enough that you can see why teams are starting to pay attention. So while the player is asleep, totally unaware, their brain is being mechanically rinsed. This is the recovery, not the ice bath, not the protein shake, the 3 a.m. wash. The player wakes up 8, maybe 9 hours after they finally fell asleep. Now you can see what recovered and what didn't. The cardiovascular system is mostly back. Heart rate is close to baseline. Blood pressure is normal. Hydration is almost there if they drank enough overnight. The muscles are not back. The soreness that will peak tomorrow is starting to show up now. The microscopic tears are being repaired, but the inflammation is doing its job, which feels like pain. Walking downstairs is unpleasant. The hormonal system is still mid-adjustment. Testosterone, which crashed during the match, is climbing back. Cortisol is dropping. The ratio between the two, used by sports scientists to track how recovered an athlete is still off. It will take another 24 hours to normalize. And the brain. The brain is the variable. If sleep was good and the glymphatic flush ran cleanly, the player feels sharp. If sleep was bad, they feel like they have a hangover, except they didn't drink anything. Heavy head, slow thoughts. This is what real neural fatigue feels like. This is why World Cup squads now travel with sleep scientists. The match is over. The training is days away. The thing they're trying to protect, in the gap between them, is the hours of slow-wave sleep that decide whether the player is ready to do it all over again. 24 hours, 1 match played, 80 grams of carbs absorbed in 30 minutes, 1 brainwash somewhere around 3 a.m. that the player never knew was happening. Next time, we're going inside what heat actually does to a footballer's body, specifically the venues at this World Cup where matches are being played at temperatures physiologists say should postpone the game. It's stranger than you'd think. Subscribe if you want to know how the rest of the body works, one system at a time. Thanks for watching.